Good morning and welcome to my weekly Loving Gratitude series. As usual, I am sharing with you what I shared in French. Before we start, I want to share something that I hope speaks to your heart. So, what I teach doesn't come from theory or books alone. It comes from living through the very lessons I share with you. And because life has a way of reflecting our inner world, as I guide others, I'm often gifted opportunities, to say this positively, to deepen my own understanding through direct experiences. So recently, I found myself face to face with an intense lesson on abundance and the illusion of lack. For weeks, while I was preparing the past few weeks' episodes, I experienced scarcity in the most tangible form that you don't wish to anyone. And it challenged me, stretched me, and revealed unconscious beliefs still lingering in my subconscious. But even in the midst of this situation, I understood that it wasn't punishing me. Life wasn't punishing me. It was just an invitation to transcend some very deep old belief and patterns, to anchor myself more deeply in unconditional trust. So, without getting too much into the details, let's say that for some reason there were no new clients. So, I had to carefully stretch what I had to the point that the stretching became very thin, to the point where I was not even sure what I was going to eat the next day. I went that far. If money wasn't coming in. So when I chose to shift my perception, which I did suddenly, because I told myself, oh, don't worry, I'm not lacking, I'm cleansing, I'm cleansing my body. So if I'm cleansing, I had enough for a few days. I'm okay. And just because of that, I suddenly was okay to experience whatever life was throwing at me. And I was not fearful for my next few days. So, yes, changing our perception can immediately bring peace of mind. I found myself not feeding my ego based mind and at peace, not because the outer situation changed, not immediately, not even in the next few days, but because I no longer fed the ego's narrative of scarcity trying to control my perceptions. My ego was loud, trying to convince me that I was lacking and it was not making any sense, that I was trapped in my circumstances, trying to figure out what was wrong. So that's what the ego does. But somewhere deep inside, I knew that this experience was an invitation to expand. I needed to know how, though. So, with a lot of inner work, I found deep beliefs and patterns that I still had from being raised and told that as long as you have food, no matter what's happening, everything is okay. It's a huge collective belief. A lot of people think that way. And because I was teaching you about illusions of lack and the infinite inner abundance, of course I had to go through my own paradigms that were still present. That's how my life works. I walk the talk. So this experience beautifully aligned with what I've been sharing about Christ consciousness. It reminded me that true nourishment comes not from external circumstances, but from our inner connection to the divine. But saying it and even believing it, it's not enough. We must live it, and sometimes to its extreme, to transcend the old beliefs, as silly as saying, as long as we have food, we're okay. We even see this in the help we offer through charity organizations. What are those organizations offer most of the time? Food. So this simple act of love is anchored in our collective mind, making us trust external conditions as our abundance instead of our inner abundance belief. We must help one another, but we must learn to understand our inner abundance not as a last resort help, but as a constant presence. So that was a personal example of how the universe law works and how to understand sometimes something at its very core. We must experience it differently. Because if we don't experience something differently, the ego knows how to analyze it and how to use it. And it is important to experience both hands of everything, to also understand our desires and know what balance is. Every challenge, every swing of polarity is an opportunity to rise stronger and freer, not despite of difficulty, but because we've walked through it. I share this to remind you that awakening is a lifelong unfolding. We teach and we learn. And as we release layers and layers and layers of old beliefs, we expand into more of who we truly are. So if life is stretching you right now, trust that it's not a step back. It's not a setback. It's not a step back. It's a sacred invitation, initiation to a deeper and more anchored version of yourself. You know, each time that life brings us to our knees, it's an invitation. It's inviting us to rise stronger, not despite the darkness, but because we've walked through it. This brings me to this week's topic, embracing polarity and expanding through contrast. So, the escape from darkness involves two stages: the recognition that darkness cannot hide, which entails fears, and the recognition that there is nothing you want to hide anyway, even if you could, which leads to the escape from fear. This means that the journey out of darkness is not a battle, but a revelation. The first step is seeing that darkness, the ego's illusion, has no power to disguise truth, although it attempts to do so breeds fear. However, fear dissolves the moment you remember you are light itself. The second step is realizing you no longer wish to hide anything, because nothing real can be compromised, only what is ego real. So, what is false? What is illusion? In recognition, fear fades and freedom arises. You no longer defend yourself from shadows, but walk with love, knowing your light is eternal, whole, and already free. So let's explore this together as we dive into this week's reflection on polarity, balance, and the expensive wisdom that comes from embracing both light and shadow. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. That's Jesus in John. We can read that. This is not a promise that darkness will cease to exist, but a reminder that light is always present, always accessible, even when obscured by our human perception. Life is a continuous dance of polarities: light and darkness, joy and sorrow, connection and solitude. These seemingly opposing forces are not random or accidental. They are essential aspects of existence, both in the vast cosmos and within the depths of our human experience. Understanding this and interplay of polarity can help us find meaning in our struggles, embrace the fullness of life, and expand into our highest selves. Polarity exists everywhere. The universe itself expands through contrast. Stars are born from the collapse of cosmic dust, and life flourishes through cycle of death and rebirth. Without darkness, we would not perceive light, and without silence, the sound would not have any definition. So every force requires its opposite to exist, not as an enemy, but as a complement. The same principle applies to our human experience. We grow through challenges, not despite of them. Heartbreaks, they are teaching us the depth of love. Love opens us to greater gratitude. Uncertainty sharpens our trust in life. When we resist the uncomfortable polarities of existence, when we label them as bad or wrong, we block the very experience that catalyze our growth. Neville Goddard reminds us that you are not a victim of fate. You are a creator of your own reality. But creation requires choice, and choice requires contrast. If we lived only in a permanent light, we would never know the beauty of choosing it. Imagine someone who has never faced rejection. Without that contrast, they may never fully appreciate acceptance or recognize their own worth beyond external validation. Think about it. Or consider someone who has never struggled financially. They might never develop a profound appreciation for abundance, learning, or cultivate the inner strength that arises from perseverance. It's through these opposing experiences that we expand in evolving into more compassionate, resilient, and self aware beings. Polarity doesn't just shape personal growth, it mirrors the expansion of the universe itself. Think of a forest after a wildfire. At first glance, it seems like a devastation, but beneath the ashes, the soil becomes richer, seeds dormant for years begin to sprout, and life returns stronger than before. The destruction creates space for new creation, just as our personal trials make room for deeper wisdom, empathy, and inner peace. In our relationships, polarity plays out in profound ways. Conflicts can serve as mirrors, reflecting parts of ourselves we might otherwise ignore. Moments of disconnection can intensify our longing for unity, inspiring us to love more consciously. Every relationship decreases and emerges between closeness and distance, teaching us that love is not about clinging to permanent harmony, but it is about embracing the full spectrum of connection. When we begin to see life through the lens of polarity, our perception shifts. We stop fearing the dark and start understanding it as a necessary counterpart to light. We stop resisting pain and start recognizing it as an initiator of transformation. Every experience, no matter how difficult, holds the potential for expansion if we allow ourselves to learn from it. Rumi wrote, "The womb is the place where the light enters you." It is in our moment of despair that we are cracked open, allowing the divine grace to pour in. To reach equilibrium, we also must experience both sides of the polarity and of the emotional scale. It does not mean that it has to be extreme unless you are stubborn, like I am sometimes. Imagine the yin and yang symbol, a perfect circle, half dark, half white, with a dot of light in the dark and a dot of dark in the light. Once we see the dot and we focus on it, it becomes the entrance point or the door to experience the counterpart, the other part of the polarity. Imagine this: you have the symbol, and if you focus on the point, it's like a doorway to the other side. And we are the one deciding on what we focus on. So if we don't like to experience the dark side of something, we can find the light bringing us to the other side of it. Keep this in mind because it is the perfect visual reminder that duality is not division but harmony. It's a dance. Sometimes the ego based thought system leads, and sometimes it's the higher self thought system. Our ego is not an enemy, but an ally, allowing us to see when we are misaligned. Eventually, living a Christ consciousness way of living allows us to see our ego gains and our ego in motion as it is, as it does. So it does not control the narrative. The key is trust. Trust that the universe, in its infinite intelligence, orchestrates everything to our highest evolution. Trust that even during darkness, the seeds of light are already present. And trust that by embracing both sides of the spectrum, the lights and the lows, the certainty and the unknown, we align with the natural rhythm of existence and we step into the fullness of who we are and are meant to be and become. Life isn't about eradicating one side of the polarity. It's about learning to dance between them. It's about holding joy in one hand and grief in the other, knowing that both are sacred. It's about standing in the midst of chaos and still choosing love. And it's about understanding that every moment, no matter how difficult and or beautiful it is a stepping stone toward greater awakening. When we honor both the darkness and the light, we discover that they are not two, but one. We see that every experience, no matter how painful, carries the seed of grace. We learn that gratitude is not just for the light, but for the wholeness of life itself. Think about that this week. Thank you for joining me in this week's reflection. May your week be filled with love, gratitude. And as we walk through life this week, starting this week, let's release the need to escape discomfort or chase permanent happiness. So instead, let's embrace the wholeness of our experience, all of them, honoring both the darkness and the light as equally divine. For it is through the very act of living the polarity of existence that we expand, evolve, and remember who we truly are. Another key before we end this week is when we experience the darkness side of something, the ego will want to keep control as much as it can to the point of making us separated from our essence. And when we are living in this place, it becomes easy to believe that the universe has abandoned us and that we are struggling over and over and over with no way out. So it's our task to remember to see the point that we are not struggling because God abandoned us, but we are struggling because deep down we started to believe He did. God, source, infinite intelligence, whatever feels right for you. Every moment offers us a choice to see the darkness or the light, to dwell in suffering or embracing peace, even in suffering. We do not need to feed the negative stories as if we were using it to write a novel, but to be aware of what's going on, what it contains, to learn and transcend our false beliefs, so our ego based beliefs, they're not controlling the narrative anymore. And to see the positivity in the negativity and to reach within and act from it, either physically or mentally, to leave behind and stop carrying its weight. If you wish to bring this inner work to a deeper level, follow the link in the description to access the e-guide that can help your transformation related to this topic. Thank you for connecting with me again this week, and I hope you enjoy my Love and Gratitude series as much as I do. And I encourage you to share the videos with your friends and followers. We never know who needs to hear this. If you haven't seen the previous week, go and watch it. Every week there's something different, and it's always for our highest good. And remember to breathe in, to let go of all your ego based thoughts and vision, to see from your soul, and to live out. See you next week.
If this reflection resonated with you and you feel called to deepen your practice, I invite you to explore the e-guides or spiritual mind treatments, especially designed to support your journey. You can also join the membership to access all these resources for free. And if you simply wish to give in gratitude, donations are always welcome with love. Simply follow the links in the description. However you choose to engage and share, know that your presence and devotion to your path are truly appreciated.